You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she-call. You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she-call. I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn it off.
Good evening and welcome to the weekend. I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute. You're watching Independent Thinking. How's your retirement looking? Probably not so good if you've checked out your 401k program lately. But if you're a government worker, don't worry. The people will take care of you. We've got something called PERA, and it's in a lot of trouble. And to find out about it from the University of Colorado, also a senior fellow at the Independence Institute, and you also work with Americans for Prosperity, Barry Poulson. So glad you could join us.
Thank you, John.
And from the state legislature, Kent Lambert, his state representative from Colorado Springs. Now you've been following this quite a bit because this is all landing in your lap, right?
Well, we have certainly a responsibility. I'm a member of the House Finance Committee, and our Joint Finance Committee and our State Budget Committee have heard reports from the PERA organization. They have a responsibility to give us annual reports. And I think the general feeling is after about an hour of briefings, we had a lot more questions to ask about the solvency of PERA.
All right, let me just lay the groundwork on this first. One, this is important stuff. We're going to go over some numbers, and that scares me because whenever you talk about important political, budgetary stuff, there's a tendency to want to go back and watch reruns of Jake and the Fat Man. Don't do that. This is an important one. And also, we're talking about something called PERA, which is a government retirement system. We wanted someone from PERA to be here officially. We made an invitation. They said, no, we don't want to talk about this. And so we've got two folks who know a lot about it. Can you give me an explanation, first of all? What is PERA? I mean, I imagine most people listening don't even know what that is.
Well, PERA is a public employees pension plan, and it provides a defined benefit for these employees, which means that essentially the government promises them benefits and then has to come up with the tax dollars and the revenue to pay for that. And the fatal flaw at this point is that politicians have promised, and PERA has promised their beneficiaries benefits they can't possibly pay for. By that I mean that the assets in that pension plan are far below the liabilities, the promises they've made. The recent estimates are that it's probably about $27 billion in unfunded liabilities.
All right, so put it in words that I could understand. If you're a state worker in many other governments in Colorado, instead of having a retirement account or a 401k account, you're a member of this association, PERA, the Publc Employees Retirement Association, to have that right. And you don't have to pay Social Security, which is a nice thing. Instead, you put in money into this account, and taxpayers put money into this account, and it's a defined benefit, meaning when you retire, we guarantee you this is what you're going to have.
Right, we would distinguish between this type of defined benefit plan and a defined contribution plan. In the private sector, most employees are members of a defined contribution pension plan in their corporations or in their workplace. And in a defined contribution plan, they do exactly that. That is, they make contributions into a pension plan. They own the assets.
They, the employee.
The employees own the assets. And there are no unfunded liabilities in a defined contribution.
So in other words, it used to be IBM would give you a pension, which means when you retire, we're going to give you this a month. Now, we don't know what's going to happen to the economy. Now they do something that says, here, every month we're going to match your 401k, and it's your money, it's portable, you can take it any place you want. In government, however, we do it the old-fashioned way. We say, we're going to take care of you when you're older. Here's what we're going to give you. PERA is remarkably lavish. I mean, it is unlike anything in the private sector. And so when teachers, who some of them are in PERA and some are in different systems, but when they say, you know, we're so underpaid, they're really paid well in the back end, which is when you retire, you're going to get benefits nobody in the private sector gets. Would I be right?
Well, you're right, and there's certain very good things about PERA. You mentioned Social Security. That really has turned out to be more or less a system of transfer payments from taxpayers to the beneficiaries. In PERA, at least there are investments made. There's an opportunity to grow the overall account through investments in stocks and bonds and mutual funds and real estate and a lot of other kinds of investment. And each PERA employee or contributor basically has a section of that. They have their own policy and their own account, unlike Social Security, which is really just a promise for future return. The problem is...
Let me repeat that back to you. So in Social Security, I'm paying money for my payroll tax. My employer matches it. It goes in one door, and then it goes right out the other door to pay payees. But with PERA, I'm putting money aside, and there's actually an account somewhere that's supposed to accrue it. So it's not necessarily going right out the door. So this is a much better thing. I wish I could get PERA.
Right, and about 8 or 10 years ago, I think the perception was PERA was actually too big. So the rates were changed. They started giving more money to the beneficiaries. But since that time, I think we've gone through a couple of downturns in the economy, and this downturn right now really raises the issue of, do we have enough principal in the bank to pay all of the beneficiaries what we have promised that we're going to pay them?
Let me give you a private sector example and tell me if it applies. Two great airlines here in Colorado. You got United, you got Frontier. Frontier, for their flight attendants, give them a 401k, all right? So it's a defined contribution. United used to do a pension plan. Now, when United went bankrupt, they didn't have any money. They couldn't pay out their pensions. Their retirees had to take serious pension cuts. I know a lot of retired pilots, and they're, well, we had a great pension, and then it went away, and we've got no control over it. So whereas Frontier, at least their flight attendants, they know what they have. It's theirs. Nobody can take it away. United went through bankruptcy. They almost wiped out. They redid it, and now these people are getting paid less. The difference is with government employees, governments don't go into bankruptcy, really. They don't cut benefits for former employees, do they really? Isn't it that the taxpayers will be on the hook if this PERA money is $27 billion? What is that? That's 1.5 times the annual budget of the entire state, roughly?
Well, the way I think of this is, when, I guess last year, probably the start of 2008, I think the entire holdings of the PERA budget were about the equivalent of 1 year's budget for the entire United States Marine Corps. Now the value is probably closer to the entire budget of the Coast Guard. So we've lost billions of dollars, at least about $13 billion. And the question is, can what we have in the bank right now ride out this particular recession? Or are they going to have to start selling assets at a lower cost?
But who's on the hook, Professor?
Well, I think that the example you gave of United Airlines is actually ubiquitous. This has happened to most private corporations.
Yeah.
They have ended up with these defined benefit plans that they can't pay for. So most private corporations have done what United did. They replaced the defined benefit plan with a defined contribution plan. And that eliminates unfunded liabilities. And in fact, a number of state and local governments have enacted the same reforms. Alaska, Michigan, and Oregon have basically done the same thing that's happened in the private sector. That is, they've replaced their defined benefit plan with a defined contribution plan. Now, we proposed that PERA enact this type of reform a number of years ago, but they did not enact that reform. Now, the problem at this point, the unfunded liabilities are much worse than they were 4 years ago when we addressed the problem.
When you say we, who's we?
Well, I was on a commission to try to reform PERA back in 2005, and I recommended that PERA, in fact, replace their defined benefit plan with a defined contribution plan. And the reason is...
Let me repeat that, because
Sure.
Isn't that really the essence here? That if we want to, in the long run, solve this problem, we must do what private sector big companies have done, which is go away from this benefits package where we promise to give you money when you're retired to giving you money right now for your retirement account, and that money is yours. And you're telling me that other states have done this?